In this video, I'm going to talk about what are the best settings that you can change in Spider-Man 2 to make your game easier, more real, or even change the way it looks. So if you go ahead and hit the three-line button on your controller and then go down to settings, we'll start out with the gameplay ones right here. Of course, you can change the difficulty level of your entire game. You can change the enemy's health, damage, stealth awareness, simplify puzzles. If you are struggling with puzzles in the game, you can literally simplify them and make it really a breeze to solve them. And there's several more settings like this that are designed for children playing Spider-Man 2 to make it easier for them to actually play the game without getting their butts kicked. One of the biggest things that I noticed here was game speed. You can set down your game speed all the way to 30% game speed. And you can actually just play like this. You can literally play in 30% game speed. So if you're doing like really hard challenges where you need to be super specific, like dodge at the right time, punch at the right time, I'm thinking things like the Mysteriums, like one of the ones that are really, really hard, the one in Harlem. If you probably do that one in 30% gameplay speed, you might actually be able to successfully pull it off and get the accuracy, the timings that you need so that you can beat it and, play more successfully by playing slower, even though it's kind of like maybe cheating, I guess. I do think it's a very interesting setting to have in the game. We also have auto aim, which I guess like helps you shoot at specific targets when you're using your web. There's the one that will automatically complete the quick time events. These are things like where you have to hold down your triggers to like angle them at the right thing. I wouldn't really turn this off because I find them kind of interesting. Auto heal, I would keep off because you'd rather, instead of automatically heal, you'd probably want to keep your circle and triangle move to keep your finishers. In your swing assist settings here further down, you can actually turn off your swing steering assistance. I kind of like mine on. I mean, I think I played the whole game with it without changing it, and I like the way it feels. Some people like to go and have a more realistic setting. I did turn on slow corner time scale. This is when you're like swinging around corners. Sometimes you're maybe swinging a little too fast. This makes it so that when you take like turns like this here on the left, it makes it a bit more easier, like slows down the game a bit so that you can actually get more control over your swings. I think this helps a lot when you're trying to take turns and, control your character and give you more time for those turns instead of like suddenly turning, which is it's still pretty hard. I kind of, maybe I suck a bit. I don't know. I feel like it helped when I was going at high speeds and taking like sharp turns. It really helps me like control my character. You can also turn off web line bending if you don't like it. It's on by default. Fall damage is also off by default if you want to like take fall damage, but you really have to be falling from like a really high distance. Like falling down from there is probably only going to take like maybe 5% of your health in fall damage. But it goes up more exponentially the higher you get. So if you fall from like really high heights, you will then die pretty easily when you splat on the ground. Moving on to the controls in the settings. Here you can mess around with like inversion of your, your look and controls, your vibration settings. Repeated button presses can be changed from like, instead of having to tap like, for example, like using the bicycle where you had to like tap X over and over and over to cycle, you can change this to rather holding X instead. There's also a very interesting setting here. I didn't even know this existed, called continuous dodge. Now, when you hold circle, it will continuously dodge every single attack that enemies throw at you. So if you're struggling and you're getting your ass beat by a bunch of enemies who are constantly attacking you, you can turn this on and hold circle and dodge everything. There's also the web shooter burst. Now, this one allows you to fire up 3 web shots at once when you press R1 instead of just shooting one at a time. So by default, you shoot one web like this. But if we turn web shooter burst on, right, and then we go back into the screen and we press it, you'll see it shoots 3 at a time. This works for when you like open certain doors and then there's a gear and you press R1, boom, boom, hit it 3 times, and then it will actually like web it up so that it doesn't keep moving. This also works for enemies. Like if an enemy is close to a wall, you can press it like that and it should like web them to the wall. Or if you knock them down like with a holding square attack and then on the ground and you press it again, it will web them to the ground and take them out of combat immediately. It's a nice little trick to beat enemies really fast. I personally prefer pressing R1 as many times as I want to myself, so I have this off. There's also a bunch of toggles in the control section over here, like aiming mode, where you press L2, where you actually have to hold L2. You can actually set this to like tap L2 once and then it stays in aiming mode. The same with swinging and parkour. Like if you're holding R2, you will keep swinging. But if you set it to toggle, you just have to press R2 once and then you're going to be constantly swinging without having to press anything else. Same with air trick mode, same with web wings mode. An interesting one here is melee mode. Now, by default, when you press your square button, it will do a single attack. But you can actually change it up here to do a combo as well as continuous, which is really interesting. So combo means when you press it, it will do 4 hits. Continuous means it's just going to attack continuously. I guess if you hold down square, it's just going to keep punching enemies over and over and over again. Or we can have it like in that burst with a combo. I feel like single is better so that you have more control over how you play. But it is interesting knowing that it's there. Okay, back to the main settings screen here. There is a visual area. So in visuals, you can change your graphics between fidelity, which is like makes the world look super real. As you can see over here, this is what fidelity mode looks like. It is in 30 FPS. It just makes everything more high quality. It doesn't really do so well when you're moving super quickly, but when you stop down and you go slowly, everything becomes nice and detailed and super realistic. And I think I prefer it this way. This is how I played the game. But you can also change this to performance mode, which allows you to hit 60 frames per second, still have ray tracing, but it's going to decrease like pedestrians and traffic and reduce some of the finer details so that it's not too hectic for you. So let's activate that, and then this is what it looks like here. You can already notice a subtle difference. I don't know if you guys can actually see it. I'm using a 120 hertz monitor, so it's really noticeable, but I'm not really huge into FPS. I don't really notice much. I don't know, maybe I'm just very, I lack attention to like FPS details, I guess, for me. But it does feel a lot smoother when you're playing. It feels more reactive to how you play, but I can also notice that it's a lot more noisy. There's a lot more like lines and little dots everywhere that I can see also. Like it kind of it takes away in the fidelity of like how the game looks. The quality feels like it's dropped down to like a medium. At least that's what like I can like see from it. But like the frames, I feel like it's not worth it. I'd rather have the game look nice and pretty than have it play very smoothly. I don't know. Some people would be like, you know, have a completely different opinion. But that's why there's 2 options. Pick the one you like. And I prefer fidelity mode. I feel like it just looks more crisp in this mode instead. For the next setting, the 120 hertz mode depends on whether your TV or monitor can actually reach that. So I have mine set to enabled because I'm playing on the monitor right now. If we move down into the UI section over here, you can also see you can add hints on or off. It's on by default. You can also add explicit puzzle hints. So if you're really struggling with puzzles, turn this on and it will tell you how to do everything. And then there's a bunch of settings here, how to change like your HUD and your UI. That's really specific to how you want to play. Lastly, I want to talk about accessibility, right? You'll see I missed a bunch of options in visual. That's because they're in accessibility as well. And this is going to have things like a hearing preset. So like if you struggle with hearing, you can turn this on to cater for you. Motion sensitivity. So if you get motion sickness, turn this on and it will immediately turn off things like camera shake, motion blur, depth of field. So if you find yourself getting sick, this is something you should turn on immediately. It like turns and activates all the correct settings for this, which is, I love this. I think more games should have a setting like this. There's also a motor preset, which I think if you're struggling to use your hands to use the controller or something, I'm not too sure. It basically makes it so that you can control the game a lot better. And then a vision preset if you are, you know, struggle with vision, maybe you're colorblind or visually impaired to the point where you can't like fully see what's happening. All these settings here are catered for you so that it makes the game easier for you to play it. I love that it has this. You'll also see the gameplay assists like the game speed, chase assist, simplify puzzles, all these different ones here to make the game easier if you are struggling or if you have a kid who's playing the game. You can turn all of these on so that your 2-year-old can play the game and still unlock all of the suits. Yeah, sure. Okay. But you get what I mean. This is like little brother mode. Like, you know, you turn this on so that your little brother can play the game and actually do stuff. In fact, if you keep scrolling down, it's like every single setting is within accessibility settings instead of like here. It's somehow like they merged everything into accessibility. And that's everything I think you need to know about the settings in the game in case you haven't read through or like maybe you missed something. I hope you guys enjoyed this video and thank you so much for watching.